Breaking news out of the NFL. Trevor Lawrence and the Jacksonville Jaguars have agreed to a 5-year, $275 million contract extension with $200 of it guaranteed. That's been confirmed by our Jonathan Jones. The deal will pay him an average of $55 million per year, tying Joe Burrow.
And welcome everybody to the glorious episode of The Signal Caller. I'm your host, Dwayne Douglas, and we are podcasting on the beautiful shores of the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful day out here in Southern California. PORSBR is my Twitter handle, so check me out there. And also, that PORSBR will get you 10% off of activelyblack.com. Activelyblack.com. The greatness is in their DNA. They have a lot of really great stuff for ladies going to the pool. They got swimwear. They got an Allen Iverson collection. They have a Wakanda collection for you Marvel fans, and they also have a Muhammad Ali collection as well too. But it's the finest in activewear. So I've worn them all. I wore Lululemon. I wore all of them. Actively Black is great quality. This shirt is like 4 years old. So I can tell you how the quality of it as well too. And when I take it to the gym, it's no problem. So, I guess, actively, I guess somebody who doesn't need 10% off would be Trevor Lawrence, right? We have Tony Wiggins of Locked On Jaguars here to talk about that contract here. Signal Call, we talk about quarterbacks all the time. So what was your first thought? I did hear one of your latest shows about how this is kind of this is new territory for the Jaguars to actually give their draft picks the second contract. So Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence seem to be the leaders of this team.
They are the leaders of the team, and thanks for having me out, by the way. Yeah, they are just the guys that show up early and leave late. The football playing justice is what I call them, and what that means is they appear to love the process of preparation. They only play 17 games a year, but they spend 280, 290 days in that process of improving themselves. So the type of people that you never have to worry about being prepared, out of shape, or competing. And they're the cornerstones of this franchise for a reason, and they absolutely deserve it. And it sets up good for Jacksonville because it's something that they always should have been doing, but they just never felt that they had the guys to do this for. I can disagree with that a little bit, but they never committed to the right people. Now, when they start putting these contracts back to back, you'll start noticing that they'll be able to start to build and elevate the franchise as opposed to starting over again every 3 years.
I'm a big fan of Trevor Lawrence myself. Just not. I mean, we do on this channel. We do quarterback stuff. We do USC football and we do Raiders. But I've always been a fan of Trevor Lawrence. What do you like? What is the issue with some of the detractors? I mean, it seems like to me, like when I go online, then people put his stats up against somebody like Gardner Minshew but they always fixate it. They say like last 2 years, like they'll fixate it to make their point. I think they did the same thing with Daniel Jones and the Giants as well too. But let's just be real. Like this guy is he's him. Like what I mean. Like especially. Just go back and watch that Charger playoff game. I mean, that just shows you what his ceiling is. And then also, I mean, his head-to-head battles with some of the best quarterbacks in football.
The thing with Trevor is it's the expectations. And I always disagree with what everybody thought he was. I never thought he was Aaron Rodgers or Patrick Mahomes when he came out of college. I thought he was just a more athletic version of Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. That type of quarterback. And I think what's happening is they're expecting Superman. They're expecting all of the things that you would think a quarterback would do that would lead to him living up to that billing and that press, the way that they covered him in college. That's just not, in my opinion, who he is. I think he's a really, really good player. He's a really, really good quarterback. And like you said, you can make stats say anything you want them to. Here's one for you. There's only 4 quarterbacks that have 8,000 yards and 55 touchdowns in the last 2 years. Trevor's one of them. So they can talk about Gardner Minshew. They can look at those numbers in a vacuum without really, really paying attention to everything that's been going on. But if people want to know who he is and who he can be, go back and watch the second game last year when they played, the second time they played the Houston Texans. And him and young CJ Stroud were going blow for blow. That is the Trevor Lawrence that I know he can be more often.
Yeah, no question about it. The relationship with him and Doug Peterson, that seems like, I mean, like, so can you talk about like that conversation there, and then also Press Taylor as the OC? How do they get the best out of him?
Well, by first they got to protect him a little bit better and
Yeah.
give him some catch radius guys, and I think that's what they did this year with Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas Jr. Both guys, one guy 6'2", one guy 6'3". They gave him more. The ball didn't have to be as perfect with those players. They had a lot of drops last year, man. A lot of
Yes.
touchdown and first down drops that nobody wants to, give a mulligan to Trevor about. But now I think with the more physical receiver, and when the team said that they need to get more physical, everybody thought that they were just talking about the trenches. I think they're talking about guys being knocked off their line in the routes. I think they're talking about guys fighting for footballs and just being bigger and stronger, having big hands and that can fight through people that are knocking the ball out and trying to jug the ball away when the ball is in there. So I think they've done that, but he does have to get to the point where he's not a turnover machine. It's not all interceptions; it's mostly fumbles.
Fumbles, yeah.
It comes from trying too hard, and I think that goes back to don't be Patrick Mahomes. Don't run around.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Drop back, take your drops. When that back foot hits that ground, you go through your progressions and you trust your arm and you trust that you're not going to get hit. So a lot of that is on Jacksonville. They had to protect him first because he was running for his life most of the time.
No question. Gabe Davis comes over. You already have Christian Kirk, the LSU wide receiver, Brian Thomas Jr. His teammate gets most of the pub, but like, what are your thoughts about him? I know that he is a guy who a lot of Jaguar fans are liking what they're seeing so far, even though there hasn't been a game yet.
Super graceful, effortless speed, confidence. He has a real calm, quiet demeanor. He almost has a Julio Jones type demeanor where they're trying to get him to talk more and he just won't do it. He just goes out, and they said that he retains everything. He doesn't have to be told the same thing twice. Look, we've seen it before. The last time we saw multiple receivers from LSU get drafted in the first round, even though it was in different drafts, they took Justin Jefferson in the late 20s because he got outshadowed by Jamar Chase, and rightfully so, because Jamar Chase is very good.
Mm-hmm.
A player just like Jamar Chase and Malik Neighbors may have outshadowed BTJ a little bit, but guess what? Doesn't mean he can't play. And he looks like the real deal. He really looks the part. A nice big physical target who catches the ball with his hands, and like I said, he runs in and out of his breaks. He looks like he's going 3/4 speed like the old Henry Ellett used to, but and Isaac Bruce, but he is moving because he is so big.
Yeah. Because I'm a fantasy owner and I've always had Calvin Ridley for years. So what was the disconnect? What was I don't know if you know who Alex Rollins is. He has a YouTube channel. He breaks down film, whatever. And he broke down Calvin Ridley and how they had him, instead of having him off the ball where they can move him around and do stuff like that, they had him on the line of scrimmage where he can get jammed a lot. Where was the disconnect between those two? Because it just seemed like they played okay together, but I thought once Calvin Ridley became a Jaguar, that was going to be it.
Well, Doug Peterson had a lot of experience using guys just like Calvin Ridley. So this, he comes from the Andy Reid offense.
Yeah.
And to think that Doug Peterson didn't actually know how to use, I don't agree with that. What I think they were trying to do is look at the contract that Calvin Ridley got, right? That suggests that he's a 1 or 1B wide receiver, correct? Yep. $93 million over 4 years. That's not a guy you have to hide. That's not a guy you have to put somewhere for him to be successful. When you pay a guy $93 million, he should be able to play wherever you ask him to play. So some of this blame for them misusing him has nothing to do with those drops he had, because misuse ain't got nothing to do when the ball hits you in the hand. You're supposed to catch it. Okay,
that's true.
It doesn't. When you run an option routes and you and the quarterback have to get on the same page, that ain't got nothing to do with misuse. So we can talk about him. Maybe he's a better in the slot, but see, if you talk about that stuff before free agency, he doesn't get the money he gets.
Yeah,
because it's like, no, he is strictly a slot receiver. I was of the thinking that when Calvin Ridley was in Atlanta, it was him and Julio. I didn't see a third receiver. It was him and Julio Jones, right?
Yeah.
So for the most part, everybody figured the next logical step is for him to be a number one, and for them it was that X spot. I just don't like. On one hand, we say that it's the team's fault a dude wasn't really successful because he was put in the wrong position, but then he gets a $23 million contract, and he was in a position to do something. Somebody still wants him.
Yeah.
So my thing is sometimes we have to blame who it is that dropped the balls and who it is that did that stuff. And maybe Calvin Ridley can't be what the Jaguars wanted him to be. Maybe he can't, but I think he probably wanted to try. Yeah. And he wanted to try because you get more money when you get more
money. No question about it. A number two will take number one money a lot of the time. They will never refuse it and say I'm a number two receiver. No, they will never do it. You mentioned about little Trevor Lawrence and getting him protection. Did they do enough this offseason with the offensive line to give him that protection? Because that's where it all starts for him. And if he gets that, then he doesn't have to worry about the fumbles and everything like that. He can just go back and beat Trevor Lawrence.
Well, I'll tell you what happened. And I thought that they were I was talking about Robert Hunt and Quisenberry Jr. I was talking about so many people. I thought they needed to get 3 offensive linemen. And then once I saw what that market was for all of those guards that are starting to make 30, 30, I was like, they were probably pretty smart to just restructure Brandon Sheriff and then to keep Ezra Cleveland and give him a nice little bump in his contract and just try to hope that they can be more healthy. The key thing was Mitch Morse. They needed to get a veteran center. They needed to get someone who could snap the ball without getting knocked over. Luke Fortner, to me, is one of the non-strongest people I want to call a man weak, but he just, too many times, man, on tape, he just gets bullied out of the way. And Travis Etienne was hit faster than any running back, and Trevor Lawrence was touched up faster than any quarterback by the interior defensive line. So they had to get better. And I don't recall a whole bunch of tape of Mitch Morse getting pushed around. I think he was just probably let go of Buffalo because it was just time to move on. And they did a lot of letting go up there. So between Morse, they drafted Javon Foster as a developmental player. Anton Harrison is the total truth on one side. They still love Cam Robinson for his physicality. It's all going to be on Cooper Hodges, Javon Foster making a little bit of a difference and making a push, and then Mitch Morse obviously being the new guy on the block. They're just hoping everybody can stay healthy and play together. The starting offensive line played one game last year together.
Yeah, that's not good. Yeah, that's not good. That's not good. I think the most important thing about it too is that I'm looking at the contract breakdown, and he only is. This year, he's taking up 5% of the cap, and like he doesn't really get to 14% of the cap until 2028. So still flexibility for the Jaguars to do some things there as well. I think last question is, it's 3rd and 6, and who's that guy he's going to get that 3rd and 7? Because not everything's going to be a big play down the field, so you got to move the chains.
No, I think it's going to be Christian Kirk first and Evan Ingram.
Yeah.
And until that's the way it is until it isn't. And what I mean by that is we got to see the new people come in. They have to ingratiate themselves into the offense. But I think he's going to go back to old reliable. Christian Kirk had, I believe, like 80 balls, 84 balls the year before. And last year, Evan Ingram was over 100. I think his first eyes initially coming in and out of training camp is going to be the guys that he's familiar with. And then he'll start to really see, I think, get the value of Gabe Davis in the middle of the field, and then understand exactly what Brian Thomas Jr. knows and what he doesn't know. Now, if you ask me, when it comes to the end of the year, I think his big play threat will be the rookie out of LSU. Yeah. And I think it'll be one of those 2 guys I mentioned at the top that would be his – well, it might be Travis Etienne, because that's another option when you start checking down and guys have to really, really play coverage and leave that little flat area. That's an area where you really want to get Etienne too, because he can make a guy miss. And if he makes one guy miss, now that thing turns into a first down or a touchdown.
Yep, no question about it. So we are talking to Tony Wiggins, Locked On Jaguars. Thank you for joining us here. You can reach him on Twitter at @ShopTalkingWig with 2 G's. It's not just Jaguar stuff; it's good football stuff as well too. So definitely check it out. And the show is a very cerebral football show. That's why even though I'm not a Jaguar fan, I do listen to your show once a week. So as far as that goes, so all right. Thank you, man. Take care, brother, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.